Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio. And we fired up the cameras here. We want to welcome back from the Fort LeBoeuf Historical Society, Dick Arthur. Good to see you, sir.
Nice to see you again, Joel.
Appreciate it here. Again, I think when you first came by, you guys were doing a major work on the George Washington statue, right?
We were rededicating it on its 100th anniversary. And that was
the statue's 100.
Of the statue, yes.
Okay, and when was that? That was
in 2022.
Okay, so that was a good 4 years ago now.
Yeah, it was.
And now we're celebrating the Eagle Hotel's 200th anniversary, right?
We're putting a whole bunch of anniversaries together this year.
Well, it is the oldest. Isn't Waterford like the oldest parcel in Erie County?
Well, it's one of the older established locations.
Yeah.
When the stagecoach first started coming to Erie County, the terminus was Waterford, not Erie. That didn't last for long, of course, but that was the original plan, and the state built a road to Waterford.
Yeah, the Portage Road, right, to get to French Creek from the lake, right?
Right, yep. The anniversary is an opportunity for us to celebrate 200 years of nearly continuous hospitality to the region. It began when stagecoach travel was kind of the standard for excellence, getting from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. And in western Pennsylvania, the accommodations that you might experience on your 5-day trip from Philadelphia or 2-day trip from Pittsburgh were not very luxurious. The food wasn't very good. You were probably sleeping with a lot of fleas in an old barn or something. Not much better. Can
you imagine taking 2 days from Pittsburgh to get here?
And probably it was always either too wet, too dry, too hot, too cold, too snowy, too something. It was always miserable.
Wow.
And the stagecoach could be very cramped. If you think about airline travel today, that would be about how much room you'd have while you were bouncing around and meeting a lot of people who you may wish you hadn't had an opportunity to meet along the line. But that's how you got from point A to point B if you were traveling at the top of the line. Well, the idea in Waterford was that one of the town's founders, son, Thomas King, decided to build a quote-unquote New England-style stagecoach stop. Okay. Because in New England and in and around New York and Philadelphia, that was rather refined. So he was going to try to bring that here. And I think that he met with a great deal of success. You know, the building's still standing.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it looks like nothing like anything around. It's a very different looking building.
It is. Right? We don't have many limestone buildings here. So he engaged a builder that we believe lived in Lancaster, at least for a while. Now, of course, in that part of the state, siltstone and limestone were used for construction for everything from barns to homes to commercial buildings. And he brought that talent here. And of course, the first thing he had to do was find a source for the stone. And we believe that we know where that source was. It was somewhere within a couple of miles of Waterford. But it's not really true limestone. It's siltstone. And it had a peculiar aspect in that it would absorb a little bit of the local petroleum that was in the soil.
Yeah.
And for the first couple of years after it was built, it would kind of sweat oil. So it probably
don't want to have that near your roast beef and mashed potatoes.
Yeah,
right?
and give you a little bit of an aroma in the evening. But it doesn't do that anymore.
Okay. Well,
so if anyone's planning on coming out, they don't have to worry.
Makes me wonder where this quarry was, and can you still get siltstone?
Well, you know, it's very interesting. In attempting to put together an event that we're holding this weekend, which, by the way, is sold out, I encountered a descendant of the man who built the building. And she was a former resident here. She was a student at Allegheny College. And while she was there, she went to look for this location, and she gave us the grid coordinates. So we're going to go out and take a look at it. It's been played out for years. There's not much there now, but that was that was the original source of the stone.
That is really interesting, and so it started out as a stagecoach. Did it ever? We're calling it an Eagle Hotel. I'm assuming you could rent a room.
Oh, you
for
could.
most of its
you
existence.
Could for most of right up until the 1950s. It still had rooms to rent. That population changed over time. Originally, it was mostly stagecoach stop people, and then it became business people who were traveling on the railroad, and they would travel, get off at the railroad station and come up by wagon to town, which was about a mile away, and they would stay there.
You're talking about like the Waterford Depot, which is just outside to the east of the main square there.
It wasn't really right on the railroad, but it was really the closest thing.
Sure, yeah.
And then even into the 1930s and 40s, it had a fairly robust population. It had included in there some of the big bands of the time. They didn't perform in the Eagle. The venue there's too small. But people like Guy Lombardo, for example, would bring their band and they'd stay there overnight while they were traveling.
Are you kidding?
So we had a lot of interesting visitors. While the building was under construction, Lafayette came, and he was coming up to Erie for the celebration that we marked last year. Mm-hmm. And the night before, he stayed in Waterford. Now, the Eagle Hotel was not built at that time, but it was under construction. So in the morning before he came to Erie, he came over across the street from where he was staying that night, and he was shown the Eagle while it was under construction. So we get to say that Lafayette was one of our building inspectors.
I love it.
President Zachary Taylor came through in 1849, and his purpose was he was on official business. He was traveling, as presidents did at the time, himself and his one male secretary traveling without an entourage of security or press. And he chose to stay here overnight because he was a great fan of George Washington.
Okay.
He knew about all of Washington's adventures and wanted to be able to see the ruins of Fort LeBoeuf, which, of course, he could out the window of the room in which he stayed. So
I got to ask you a question. This is total trivia. Was Zach Taylor's nickname Tippecanoe?
No, he was Old Rough and Ready.
He was Old Rough and Ready.
Yes.
Who was Tippecanoe?
Tippecanoe was William Henry Harrison.
Yes. Tippecanoe and Tyler, too.
That's right.
So was Tyler Harrison's VP?
He was. And to get off the subject.
But
to get off the subject, even though they were in the same party, they were of completely different components. And when Harrison died after only a month in office,
he did that 2-hour
that's right. He
speech,
got up
right?
and spoke, and he got all wet and got sick. And then his successor came in. One thing he did do is he established that the vice president does, in fact, become the president, not a temporary president. So that was established. But he was of completely different interest and persuasion than the party first man, so that was a little bit disruptive.
Yeah, rough and ready. That's amazing. Okay, so this has been and we're talking to Dick Arthur here about the Eagle Hotel. People need to understand it was not Washington never stayed there. At the hotel.
No, it was
pretty
it was
sparse.
Built in 1826,
yes.
So it would be 27 years after George Washington died. But we often like to say, when people ask, did George Washington sleep here? And then I point out the window and say, nobody slept over there on the ground or in some of the buildings over there.
Right.
So, yes,
people need to realize how much of a wilderness this was.
It was. George Washington's 500-mile trip each way to and from Williamsburg was more than 3/4 of the way in pretty remote territory. It was very remote up here.
Yeah.
So, yes, it was. The only thing up here was the fort. But we have, as a homage to that, we have a room dedicated in our museum on the second floor to George Washington, where we have a set of etchings from 1932 that were originally produced to raise money to restore Mount Vernon. Was one of their first fundraisers.
And this is in the middle of the Depression.
Depression, yes.
And they're trying to rebuild Mount Vernon.
Well, what these women did was they cajoled some of the leading graphic artists of the time, and they donated their service, making one picture of one episode of Washington's life.
Oh, my.
So there is a series of pictures.
And you guys have them at your museum?
We have one of only 2 complete sets of that.
Wow.
Yes, and they're very remarkable because they're very detailed. A lot of research went into those drawings.
Okay, so where is are you saying this is over at the museum there?
It's on the second floor of the Eagle.
It's at the Eagle. Okay.
I
I didn't realize you made that into a museum.
Yes, we do. We talk about the stagecoach. We talk about stagecoach travel. We talk about the visit of Zachary Taylor. We have these Washington etchings. We talk about Washington's journey as a 21-year-old young guy coming up here and almost dying twice.
What was his rank when he came up?
He was a major.
He was a major at 22 or 21.
Well, you see, they needed a guy who had just enough social status so that when he arrived, the French would receive him seriously.
Yeah, he couldn't be a second lieutenant.
Right, or just a guy.
Yes.
And he was received very well and treated very well, as was the protocol at the time. But yes, he was a young man when he arrived.
The commander of the fort though said, "Thanks, but yeah, we're staying."
That's right. That's right.
If you want us out, you're going to have to force us. Well, that's remarkable. I guess I'm not sure people knew that that you have a whole some permanent exhibits.
We do
at the Eagle.
Yes, we also have a room dedicated to telling the story of Waterford during the Civil War. Of course, we mentioned Strong Vincent, who was a native of Waterford, but we also talk about the everyday soldiers, and we talk about the people living in Waterford at that time. And we have a black mourning dress, which would have been worn by so many of the people in town as they lost their brother, father, husband, whatever, during the conflicts of the time.
Let's take the opportunity to share about what folks can do at the Eagle now. I mean, you're saying that the food service is back up and running, right?
Yes. The Eagle restaurant is operated as a separate entity by one of our tenants. They have basically recreated the menu that people are familiar with, comfort food.
Yeah.
It is open 4 days a week for dinner. That's Wednesday through Saturday, 3 to 8. So it's not open for lunch.
It's not a luncheon.
But starting on Father's Day, it will be open for brunch on Sunday from 11 to 3.
Nice.
And the inside of the hotel, for those who are accustomed to the old sugar and spice decorations with the quilts hanging from the ceiling and a lot of teddy bears and so on, that's all been taken out. We renovated the inside and put it more on a historical theme. So now you will see portraits of people who had an impact on the Eagle and scenes from Waterford through the years.
Whenever I've had dinner there or lunch there, it always felt like the chairs I was sitting on have been around a while.
They have. I don't think they're original.
Right.
But it is interesting. I had a comment from one person when I told them that we were doing some upgrades and preservation work, and they said, "Oh, I hope they fixed the floor. That floor is so rough." No way we were fixing the floor.
Yeah, you're not touching the floor.
The floor was there from the middle 1840s when after the fire, which gutted the interior of the building. Yeah. Those planks were put in, and they remain there today. When we did the renovation, it was truly remarkable to go down. We went down to the foundation, down to the dirt in some cases, and found that a lot of that wood was still completely intact and in immaculate condition.
Tell us what the Fort LeBoeuf Historical Society is doing with America 250. Tell us what your summer looks like here,
Well,
Dick.
we, of course, during Heritage Days in July, We will be opening our entire campus. We will have our Fort LeBoeuf museum from the French and Indian War. We will have the Judson House, which tells about domestic life in the 19th and early 20th century. We will have both the Eagle Restaurant and the Eagle Museum open. We will have our garden area open. And one of the remarkable things about the garden area is we have a man who comes and he makes chairs much like the French would have made them in the 18th century on the frontier. Wow. He uses no power tools. Everything is crafted with period work. And he also tells wonderful stories. So he can tell you why, how, and if these these chairs were used and why they were made this way. And it's just amazing. I was visiting Mount Vernon, and I ran into some men who were doing some restoration work. I started to talk to them, and I told them where we were from. And they said, "Oh, well, you know Chris." I said, "Well, yes, I know Chris." "You know Chris down here?" And they said, "Oh, Chris, yes, he's the standard for 18th century tools." So
unreal.
Come down, see his workshop, see our 18th century garden, see the Eagle, see the museum, see the Judson House. A lot of history within one city block.
Unbelievable. It's funny. We met with you. We're meeting with you today. Yesterday we had the folks from the National War of 1812, Steve Scully and Brad King. This whole concept of historical tourism. I mean, it's not just for the locals. I mean, there are people that will go. I want to go to a museum when I visit a town. It's just true.
It's amazing, Joel. We have visitors from all over. We have people who come from Europe, from Canada. We've had people come from Asia. A lot of these are coming to see specific things about the French and Indian War Museum. But I had a woman from Taiwan visit at the Eagle Hotel just a couple weeks ago. So we do have visitors. I also want to put in a plug for the wonderful series of museums and historical societies that we have across our county. We have people who operate stories about making maple syrup, about what a school was like in the 19th century. We have great railroad displays. We have a lot of things going on, and a lot of these are free or very, very low cost. They're great things when people come from out of town to stay a week or even 3 days in Erie. They should dedicate one of those days to checking out some of the history.
Well, you think about it, just a couple days ago, Northeast had their day in the sun, the Railway Museum there with the big boy coming through.
Yeah, that was great.
We talked to folks from Lawrence Park about that former amusement park that was there at the GE picnic grounds and so on over there, right on the lake. Of course, Union City has a beautiful, historical collection and so on, and it's all around Edinburgh,
Northeast. I've had the opportunity to meet and talk with a lot of the people in these museums, and it's truly amazing.
And I think a key part of this too, Dick, is the whole genealogy piece of this, of understanding the families and where people come from. Oh, I'm related to them. That kind of.
Many of these museums offer genealogical help. We do in Waterford. I know they do in Union City. They do in Corey. They do it a great job. So if you have folks who are listening who think they may have had some family from these areas, they can check it out. They might find pictures.
Bring the kids to this.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I feel like sometimes we're not getting a ton of this content, the local stuff, in the school curriculum, because they have to teach the standardized
STEM,
stuff.
Sure,
the STEM, yes.
STEM, and I understand that, but a great part of who we are is in our past, and it helps us understand the complexity and richness of the tapestry that makes us.
What are regular hours for you guys?
Well, normally the French and Indian War Museum is open like Tuesday through Sunday, usually around 10 until closing, about 5.
Okay.
For the Judson House and for the Eagle Hotel Museum, we would basically say we're open on particular days where we've highlighted our regional presence. Usually those are available on Facebook.
Okay.
But if anybody wants to go to the Eagle Hotel and go to the museum, I will give my phone number out over,
there you go.
over the air. You can call me at 814-240-8244, and I will do everything I can to accommodate you, your group, your family, your social organizations, because we like to tell about what's going on. We like to tell the story.
From Fort LeBoeuf Historical Society, Dick Arthur. Appreciate it, sir.
My pleasure.
Two minutes in front of 4 o'clock. Let's take a second here and see what the markets are doing. And just like yesterday, we're all red. It's all green today. The Dow is up nearly 2%, 950 points at 50,869. The S&P 1.8% or 73.96, and the Nasdaq up almost 2.6%, 650 points or 25,820. Again, the Dow is surging 900 points after Trump pulls back the threat. The Nasdaq rose more than 2%, and oil fell after the president said he was canceling strikes on Iran planned for tonight. We will continue to watch that. Coming up, we're going to hear from the folks from the Presque Isle Advisory Team.